summer day. As you can tell, we weren't quite prepared for this big of a group, but the great staff at Bravo tomorrow will make it work out, so thanks for your patience with us. But because I know you're here to hear Tyler and to get every ounce of his knowledge that you can, we're going to get started. So those of you that are still waiting to be seated, just go up to the line and help yourself as soon as you're ready. Don't worry about that, that's perfectly fine. First, I'd like to thank you for our sponsor that makes Noontime Knowledge possible at such an inexpensive cost to you. $10 for a great meal and a great program is made possible by Mid-Minnesota Federal Credit Union. Mid-Minnesota is a non-profit, member-owned financial cooperative serving central Minnesota. The credit union has 10 locations offering service solutions to fit all of your financial needs. So please stop into the Alexandria branch up by the interstate, talk with Nicole or one of the member service specialists today. And we thank them for making this possible. Now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Tyler Goldberg. Tyler is the co-founder of CYBErsprout, where he works on website development and strategy for small businesses across the country. He's been working on website design since 2005 and SEO since 2011. His proudest accomplishment is growing HomeSpot IQ to more than 50,000 visitors a month. So please join me in welcoming Tyler Goldberg.
So before we get started, I always like to see who's in the audience here. So who here has actively worked on a search engine optimization marketing campaign? Anybody? Gotta be a few of you out there. All right. Who in here doesn't know what search engine optimization is? It's okay, we can all be honest. I didn't know what it was at some point either. It's relatively new in the marketing industry. You know, it's something that didn't really come around until about 10, 15 years ago, and it's continuing to evolve and mature. So I'd love to just jump and get started. This is one thing, if you don't want to have to take notes, you can go to this. You can actually download my presentation deck in a PDF. And actually, I've got a few articles on there that tie into this topic. So that way, if you want to do a little bit further reading, you can go in there and you can touch on some of the topics that we've already talked about today. And then as well, you can also see we've got some future events, like we've got one with the Glenwood Chamber coming up here August 7th at noon. And that one's going to be on owning a website strategy. This, to me, search engine optimization is a part of that strategy. This is one piece of it. This next one we're going to be talking about with the Glenwood Chamber. That one is going to be more of a holistic overview on a website strategy. So let's jump in. So why search engine optimization? Why is it important? How can we focus on our local market where we're going to have a better advantage as a small business? You know, what keywords are people searching for? How can we optimize for them? And then making sure that we do an audit, kind of a general health check at least once a year on our site. So why is search engine optimization important? Well, I kind of feel like this is almost like preaching to the choir, because you're obviously all here because you know being found on Google is important. It's just a matter of like, how do we get found on Google? But the numbers are staggering, they're only growing. But one thing I wanted to point out is not only are mobile searches growing as a whole, because more devices getting out there, but the engagement for mobile users is also increasing per mobile user. You're seeing increasingly where mobile users immediately turn to a search to find what they're looking for instead of trying other avenues. And then the elephant in the room is really Google. When I first started doing this back in 2011, I want to say that their market share was probably around 65–70% in the US. And that has just continued to increase, and not only have they dominated as far as market share, and this is also in a growing industry too. And Google is not just in the search engine optimization or search engine business, they also are in the data business, which a lot of you probably know to some degree. And how they do that is not just through their search engine, because they're collecting a lot of data with that, but they track about 75% of all traffic on the internet, which is staggering. They can, through Google Analytics, which hooks up to websites to see their analytics, through Google Chrome, they own YouTube, Google Maps, all their different product offerings out there. They track about 75% of all traffic, so they see a lot of what we do. Now, that being said, you kind of have to steer into the skid a little bit here. So Google Analytics and Google Search Console, these are two products that Google offers for free. Google Analytics provides you, and I'm sure a lot of you have it hooked up to your website already, tells you who's how many people are visiting your website, what content they're looking at, how they found your site. The second one, Google Search Console, that one I love because this is one of the few times that Google actually gives you direct data from Google. They're usually very closed off as far as what data and information that they share, but that's one of the few times that they will give you direct feedback from Google. And you can also tie Search Console into analytics so that that search data is passed to your analytics dashboard and you can tie that all together. The other thing Search Console does too is it tells Google where your site is. You can upload a site map, and that's essentially like your blueprint for your website. So that way Google knows where all your content is as well. That way they make sure that your content does show up in the search results. So I want to start off first by going, instead of the broader market, local. Because local is very important for small businesses. You're going to see this is where smartphones really dominate. 95% of searches are searching for something local. And this is a big advantage in a world where there's a lot of competition online. The other thing too is staggering to me, and this came directly from Google, was that 80% of mobile users that find you as a solution will take action within 48 hours, whether that's buying a product, visiting your store, you need a quote for your service. It's a very engaged user base, and that's why a lot of people are starting to focus heavily on mobile. You also have a big competitive advantage. This is one thing that Google has told us about their algorithm. Their algorithm is kind of the magic behind their search engine, and they very rarely reveal things about their search engine. But one thing that they did confirm is that proximity of the person who's searching to your business plays a big role. So this is where, if there's a big business company, that's halfway across the country that's doing the same thing as you, this is where you can compete directly with them and win. Because sometimes it's not smart to go against somebody who has a lot more resources. This is a good way to compete with them. So, knowing that it's important, how do we do it? So, here's the 5 steps that I would take to optimize my business for local searches. So we're going to start off with Google My Business. This is another Google product that's free. Think of it as like a Facebook page for your business. And it allows you to upload essentially a profile of your business to communicate what your business is all about. Now Google will try to scrape this information themselves, but it's not always accurate. There may be outdated information. The other thing too is when you add something new, like you can see down here, this appointment link, that's a new feature that they've added in the recent year. So if you have something like a hair salon where you have a booking engine online, you can point directly to that. So somebody right from the search results can go right to booking an appointment with you. It's one less step for a user. So the other thing too is when they add these new features, it's a good way to be informed from Google when this is being put out there so you can stay on top of that. It also allows you to manage your reviews. So if anybody leaves you a Google review, it'll tell you when a new review's been left. And I always encourage people to like that review and respond to it. It shows you're engaged with users. It also, Google likes that as well. Now there's another feature that Google has added to Google My Business recently, is Google My Business Posts. This is after they killed Google Plus a few months ago. Google's failed social networking experiment, we'll call it. But Google took pieces of Google Plus out, and one of them was Google My Business Posts, and this allows you to put out posts for your business. Now these posts, where they really show up is when people search for your brand, they'll see that right along with your business. It's a great way when somebody's searching for you to say, hey, we got this special running right now. We have this new product. We have a new event coming up here. So it's a good way when people are searching for you to inform them in a different way. Now, one thing that search engines love is clarity. They like it when information is clearly presented. And one thing that Google does is they search not only their own data, but they search all the other business directories out here. And a lot of these you've probably never heard of. But it's still important to make sure that your business profile is accurate in those. Because if Google goes out there and they see, like for example, your address, maybe you move from one town to another, and it's showing, half of them are showing that old address, and half of them are showing your new one. It's very confusing for them to know where you're located. And a lot of times when search engines get confused, they just don't show your business nearly as prominently. There are some tools that can help you do this very efficiently, because having to go to all of these stops is a huge pain, and have to send all these accounts. There's tools out there like Yext and Moz Local that can help you do this. But to me, most of them, you're talking around $100 to $400 price range per year for a service like that. It's very worth it to me, just not to have to spend hours and hours and hours having to go through and staying on top of that data. So playing as well into that and how you show up prominently in those local searches is online reviews. And this is becoming more important with each year. And it's really come down to, there used to be a number of review sites, but since Google entered the market, it's really come down to just Google and Yelp competing head to head. Those are the two most prolific review spots to go. Now, I definitely put emphasis on that for anybody out there, for sure the Google ones. Also pay attention to what your industry-specific review sites are. So if you are a destination, something that deals with tourism, TripAdvisor would be very important reviews from there. And Google does scrape all the reviews from all the other review sites out there, so those other reviews are important as well. And I would also encourage people to get your clients to leave reviews, because sitting back passively, you're just not going to get as many reviews as you could if you encourage people. So whether somebody buys a product, you leave a postcard in the bag you give them to, say, hey, review us on Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor. One thing that Google does make a little bit difficult is it's not clear on how to send somebody directly to leave you a Google review. So I highly recommend this tool right here, this whitespark.ca. You can go in there, you can find your business, and it'll generate a nice user-friendly link that you can send directly to your customers, partners, whomever, to leave reviews for your site. It makes it a lot easier for those clients, and everybody knows ease of use is so huge in this day and age. And then also manage your reputation, not just on Google through Google My Business, but make sure you're staying on top of the other reviews that are out there and seeing what people are saying. I should point out too, as far as managing your reputation, those tools like Moz and Yext will help you with that as well. Not just cleaning up those other business directories, but they'll also help you to manage your reputation. So this one's a more advanced technique. For those of you who don't like the technical stuff, you can basically tune out for about a minute here. But schema is an agreed upon code set that Google, Yahoo, Bing, and Yandex came together, agreed upon. Yandex is a much more prominent overseas, but they basically said, okay, we noticed there's certain types of content. We want to make it easier to be able to understand the content and get that information to our users. So whether it's like a recipe, they have a standard set of information that goes along with it, as far as like what's the cook time, what's the ingredients cost, things of that nature. So you clearly communicate that. And events is actually a really easy one to understand, because if you've ever done a search for like upcoming events or things to do, you see those like little snippets at the top of the results. That's a lot of times schema data going into published snippets for Google. So it helps you show up right at the top of the search results if you can pass that information very clearly to Google. So they also have one for local business. So that also helps your business communicate more clearly what your business does. They have specific industries in there, like attorneys in there, plumbers, things of that nature. They have set roles in there, so you can say to them, hey, this is what our industry is and all that. Here's where we're located, our information, things of that nature. It just makes it easier to transfer that information to Google. Now, if you don't like the technical side as far as adding that into your code to be able to communicate that to Google, Google does have a data markup helper. And what you can do for like an event is you can go in, and Google will allow you to go one event at a time and show them, hey, here's where my time is, here's where my date is, here's where my location. And after they've seen 8, 9, 10 events in a row, they start to pick up that pattern, and they can automatically start conveying that information. Now that would just be for Google, not other search engines, but like I said, Google's 90% of the market, so if you're just looking for the low-hanging fruit, that's a really handy tool. All right. Who in here blogs? Anybody write articles? Can see a few out there. Perfect. So this is going to be really helpful for those that are actively trying to market, write articles, content for the users, but it's also going to be really handy for somebody who just wants to be able to create some static landing pages for the clients to be able to find them. So the first step of this, and I do these 5 steps, and in order is we want to brainstorm our keywords, figure out what keywords that we think that people are searching for that can connect them to our business. Then we want to check the competition to see if we actually have a chance to rank for that. And really the domain authority combined with competition will tell us that. We'll get to that in a second here. And then we want to create the content that matches up with those keywords so that we have a target for each keyword. keyword for people to be able to find. And then we want to make sure that we're engaging those visitors as they come to our site. So, brainstorming. I always actually like to start out with just literally pen and paper and write down from my head what I think people are searching, kind of disconnect a little bit from online. And then I like to come back to some of these online tools with my initial list and try to expand on them. And we're trying to come up with as many keywords that is relevant to our business, and it has to be relevant. So you may say, hey, I want people that are searching for this phrase, but it's really kind of on the fringe as far as related to my business. It's not really what we do. Don't go after those ones. You really want it to be on brand for who you are, because Google does pay attention to your relevance within certain topics. So if I'm writing on nothing but website design, and all of a sudden I go out there and I start writing about, traveling and things like that on that blog, it'd be really confusing to Google, like why are they trying to go after travel but design? So it helps to keep it very focused in what you do and what your articles are written on. So Google Suggest is the first place I would start. And Google Suggest is something that we've all probably used without knowing it. It's when you start typing into Google and it auto-completes for you. It gives these recommendations. So the only reason that Google would do that is because they know other people are searching for those particular phrases. And it's really insightful because not only do you know people are searching for those ones, but it also tells you the phrasing that they use. Because a lot of times as experts within our field, we use different phrasing than our clients would. And we want to match up with what our clients are saying. Similar to that, when Google related searches would be at the bottom after you perform a search. And I like these ones for going down the rabbit hole a little bit on some keywords, because say that I was really trying to go after events. If I click on that Alexandria MN upcoming events one, right there, then the next page at the bottom of that one, it'll show related searches just for Alexandria MN events. And then I can see other keywords that I may not have thought about. I may have just thought, like, I really want to rank for events in Alexandria, but maybe it gives me a bunch of other suggestions as far as, like, people are looking for event venues. Maybe some people are just looking for things to do. But it gives you a little bit more specific ideas within each topic. Going back to Google Search Console, this, if you had it hooked up to your site already, I would highly recommend going in there and taking a look at that as well, because what it'll show you is what people have been searching when you show up in search results. So not just when they're clicking, but also when you're showing up in the search results at all. This is a great place to get keyword ideas, because this is literally people searching for something that's related to your business, and you're showing up somewhere in the search results. And I like to not focus on, you can filter this down to where you're positioned within Google, and by that I mean is when somebody searches for Alexandria MN events, if I'm ranking in that, if I'm fifth on the list, that would be my position. So that before other people ahead of me in the list, I like to find ones that are at least at the fifth position or below. Because if I'm already in the top 3 spots, I'm already doing what I need to there. There's no point in worrying about that. The top 3 is usually the best spot. About 90% of clicks go to the top 3 spots. And then I especially focus on ones that are at position 11 or beyond, because that's page 2 of Google, and nobody goes to page 2 of Google ever. But it means you're really close. You're so close to getting to the first page. Those are great keyword phrases to focus on, because you're right there. So now we have that keyword list. Usually we'll generate anywhere from 50 to several hundred keywords depending on the scope of the project. We want to thin this down. So we want to see what is the competition for a particular set of keywords. And this will tell us how many people are trying to optimize for it and all that. And this is for a client that we work with. The competition is actually not that bad for this one. And this is a tool that we use called Keyword Finder. Now, I would actually recommend for you to use the Moz Keyword Explorer, because for a free account, you can get 10 keyword checks a month for free. And if you're just kind of starting to get going on this, 10 is probably enough to where you can at least start getting things going. And then you can look at other tools if you want to upgrade to be able to get access to more information, be able to run a lot more search checks. But they're going to give you a lot of data with this keyword phrase, but really the 2 things you want to focus on are search volume and then the keyword difficulty / competition. Because we want to make sure that people are actually searching for it. If we find out, hey, this is really easy competition, but there's nobody's searching for this, it doesn't really matter if we created a content that nobody's trying to find. So we want to make sure that people are actually searching for this. One thing I do want to put as a caveat, and when you're focusing on local, is It's easier when something like this one, where St. Louis Park in the cities, there's millions of people there, so there's a lot more data. For a smaller town like Alexandria, it's hard to get this data. So a lot of times I'll search more broadly and see what the relative competition is, meaning that if I see broadly, okay, this one comes in at 50, I know it's really high, it's really difficult, but I see another one comes at 40, it's still difficult, but I see it's easier than the other one. If you kind of tack on, say like restaurants, Alexandria, MN, then it's going to become a lot easier if you're focusing on that local market. So if you're focusing wholly on your local market, this keyword competition, you don't have to worry quite as much as far as like the higher difficulty. Now, that competition is great, but it really works awesome when you take a look at your own domain authority for your site. And what your domain authority is kind of your reputation as seen by Google, Bing, Yahoo in the world of search engines. So for this site that I had run, it was at 31. Now you can compare that directly to the competition for that keyword phrase, and it'll tell you if you have a chance to rank for it. So if I'm just starting out with the site, you're always going to start at 0, and you'll build that up over time. And how that reputation is built up is through what's called backlinks. So this is when other sites link to your site. This is how Google really set itself apart when it first started getting started, is they kind of looked at this as a voting system. They said, the only way that I would link to another site is if I thought that site was reputable, it had good content. So what they started doing is working this all backwards and figuring out this voting system between backlinks. I do want to note that links from like Facebook, Twitter, where you can easily post a link yourself, those ones don't count. It's when somebody links usually from like another article to your own. And as far as how you go about finding backlinks, I always think like creating the best content out there that people automatically want to link to. That's a great way to do it. You can reach out to partners, friends, people you network. There's a variety of different ways to go about it. It's a very slow-moving process though. And building up your domain authority takes time. To be able to get to a 30 out of 100, 31 out of 100 may not sound like much, but that probably took several years to get to that point. Search engines are kind of like the crock pot of the digital marketing world versus like social media is more like the microwave. So it's always sort of a slow process to get there. So it's always here like when somebody first publishes an article or they just get their website up, like why am I not showing up at the top? And it's like, okay, it's gonna take, sometimes several weeks, could take months if the competition is much higher, but you have to trust, what you've done is right. And we'll touch on this a little bit later as far as, we want to come back and review this after a period of time, maybe 6 months later and see how it did then. The other thing too is you want to see what your competition looks like too. Your direct competition, you can run this domain authority thing, and you can do this through the Moz keyword Explorer as well. So you can do this all right from Moz to check your domain authority as well as the keyword competition. So we've got our list, we've thinned it down, we've found our competition, our keywords that we want to focus on. We've eliminated all the ones that have way too high of a competition because we know that it's going to be way too difficult to rank for those ones. We want to go for low-hanging fruit. So now we need to create a content plan to match up with those keywords. And what you want to do is for those keywords that are left is match one keyword phrase to one piece of content. So you don't want to have like one article that goes after like 20 different keywords. Most likely you're going to create a lot of confusion for Google. It helps to keep it very focused. So you don't want to have like one page that's focused on web design that goes into all this other stuff on development, strategy, all these other things. If I'm going to have one page on website design, I want to keep it focused on that if I'm trying to rank for that keyword. So we've created this plan, and I like to schedule it out. And I like to start with the best opportunities, meaning the lowest competition first, combined with that volume. So if there's decent volume for something you see as a really low competition, start with those ones first. And schedule it, create yourself a schedule. I think it's a really good way to keep yourself, honest as far as, making sure you're following through with what you said. And I would recommend at least once a month if you are going to blog, at bare minimum once a month to put out a blog. Ideally, you'd want to be doing it weekly, but I know it's unrealistic because a lot of us wear a lot of different hats. It's very time intensive sometimes to write content, but I think once a week is kind of where you want to eventually get to, but once a month would kind of be a good minimum. And for those of you who are just looking to create static landing pages, you really don't have to schedule this out. You just really need to kind of create your set of landing pages that you want to get to and then prioritize your order. Then once we create that content, what we really want to do at the end of the day is create the best piece of content for that search phrase online. Meaning that if somebody's going to go out there and search that keyword phrase, then yours would be the most informative, the most helpful, the easiest to read out of any of them out there. And the reason I say this is because sometimes people worry too much about optimization and trying to manipulate Google and all that. You have to remember at the end of the day, Google has over 2,000 PhD mathematicians working on their algorithm. If you're trying to trick them, manipulate them, Google is going to be going head to head against you, versus if I created the best piece of content out there, all of those geniuses out there in Palo Alto are trying to connect my content with those searchers. That means that they're now on my side. So if I'm creating the best content out there for those phrases, Google is now on my side to help me get up there. And sometimes I see this often forgotten where they're just like, okay, I'm going to optimize and then just move on. But you have to remember that your visitor as well is engaging with this content. We're trying to get people, not algorithms. So that being said, we do want to make sure that Google knows what we're talking about, and there's several tools to help us optimize it. Because remember I said one article per keyword phrase. Well, we want to make sure when we're writing that, what does that mean that we're, dialing it in for that keyword phrase? There's a couple tools out there. If anybody uses WordPress, for example, the Yoast tool, we can punch in the keyword phrase that we're optimizing for, and it'll give us real-time feedback on how to actually optimize for that article. And just really simple feedback. You can kind of see it up here on the right. This is direct from Yoast. So it says keyword density. It's just saying I haven't used my phrase quite enough within my article, so maybe use that phrase a little bit more. It doesn't have to be perfect, but generally speaking, well optimized for that keyword phrase. And then the next part would be making sure to format that content to where it's engaging to your visitor. So when somebody goes to your article, it's not just some giant block of text that's really seems more like homework than engaging. So add in photos, videos, maybe pull out a quote that you want to highlight, put in graphics, stats. There's so much stuff you can put in there that makes it much easier for a reader to be engaged with your content. And the reason that this is important, not only for your user experience, but also for search engines, is when people click on your search result from Google and go to your site, if they go to it and they're like, man, this just doesn't look that engaging, it looks like a lot of work, and they go back to the search results, or it doesn't seem relevant to what they're searching, if they go back to the search results, Google takes note of that. So if they go there for 10 seconds, come back, Google's like, they probably didn't find what they were looking for there. I'm going to start pushing your article down. But if they go to your article and they never come back to the search results, or they spend several minutes there before they come back, Google's like, there must have been something very useful to the user there. So when they aggregate that across thousands and thousands, if not millions of users for phrases, they pick up these patterns that were sort of, unknowingly voting as far as how Google's system works. And then monitor the results. Check and see how well you did for that. And that, to me, is a part of your annual audit. At minimum, I think you should audit your site for search engine optimization once a year. If you haven't done this ever before, I think this isn't actually a bad spot to start, just to make sure that you kind of hit those minimum requirements. So, we've talked about Google Search Console plenty. As a part of your annual audit, I think it's good to go back there and see, has my position actually increased? Is that article that I created for this phrase actually starting to rank? The other thing too you can see is, okay, some of this article, it's getting close to where I want to be, but maybe it's like in the 20th spot, so I know it's on page 2 or 3 of Google. Maybe I need to go back to that article and see what is my competition doing that I'm not. So you search in that phrase again, see what the other competition on the first page, see what they're doing. Are they doing something that you're not, or do they have different information? Make sure that you have at least what they have and then some. Is it mobile friendly? This is really important, not just because of user experience. Everybody knows mobile friendly websites are very important nowadays, but Google actually separated their algorithm towards now a mobile one and a desktop one. So the search results are not going to be the same on mobile as desktop always. So, and again, going back to that, the mobile users being the most engaged, it's very, very important to make sure that we're serving those users well. And Google Search Console is now to a point where they added a feature in recent year where they'll actually tell you when a specific page is not mobile friendly. So even though your site may be mobile friendly, if you added in, say, a graphic that isn't resizing on mobile and it's breaking the format, Google will tell you that, and then you can go fix it. It's usually pretty easy fixes, but it's just one of those things that you don't want to be constantly reviewing every single article on your site for mobile friendliness. That's a good way to let Google tell you when there's an issue. Having a clear structure is also important on your site, meaning that if somebody goes to your site, they can clearly find the content that they want. And usually if a user can easily find the content that they want, it's easy for Google to find it too. And I like to actually put down some tasks, if you will, for a potential visitor. You know, if somebody is gonna go to like a plumbing site, I would say, you know, if I was in their mind, I'd want to probably go see what projects or reviews they already have first, so can they find those quickly on the site? Can they see your services next? So they go to look at maybe like your reputation first, they go to see your services, and then they go to contact you. And if you have somebody, like I like to have somebody come in that has never seen the site before. I actually used to have my mom do this for me, because she'd never seen any of my sites, and a lot of times she'd give me really good feedback, because I would just say, hey, go do these 4 things, and I would just stand back, I wouldn't say a single thing, and just watch her do it. It's really fascinating to watch people navigate your website. And there's some tools out there now, like Hotjar, for example, that you can actually do screen recordings of people that go to your website. So you can see how people are interacting with your website. You can see their mouse moving around. Do they try and click on an image and nothing happens? You know, what do you think that they may have expected to happen, something like that. But it's really, really fascinating when you watch people interacting with these sites. Broken links, this is just an easy one. Google doesn't like broken links, neither do users. So I would just make sure you do broken link scan. There's brokenlinkscan.com or something like that. Or brokenlinkcheck.com is a good free tool to scan your site. There's a variety of tools out there, but just making sure you don't have any old broken links on there. And then remove old spam. If you tried some search engine topic, you know, some strategies in the past, because things that used to work, you know, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, that don't work now, if you're trying to say manipulate Google search rankings, try and remove that old stuff off. And usually you saw this, like, how many of you have seen spam emails saying like, I can make you rank better on Google? Like, yeah, I see hundreds and hundreds of these things. They're just obnoxious. What they're really trying to do is manufacture backlinks for you, and Google is explicitly against this. Now here's the trick. There's what we call white hat techniques. This is the stuff that is completely okay in Google's mind. You know, things like making sure your content's engaged and easy to read. There's black hat techniques. That's the stuff that will clearly get you banned, and if you're trying to manipulate their rankings. And Google's already found a way to detect that automatically and stop it. Then there's what we call gray hat. And this is kind of that in between where Google said, hey, this is against the rules, but their algorithm just hasn't quite caught up to detect it. Now here's the thing, is that's where these people try to operate, and it's a bad idea, because Google is gonna catch up. Every year, they make dozens of updates to their algorithm, and it's getting smarter and smarter. So don't ever operate in that gray hat area, because eventually Google will catch up, and it can not only hurt your site, it could get completely blacklisted from Google if there's like flagrant violations. Site speed is the last thing I want to mention. This isn't something that so much helps you as it is that it can hurt you. So if you have a fast loading site, you're all good. But if you happen to have a site that loads in like 8 to 10 seconds, nobody likes that. Everybody hates a slow loading site. And going back to the search results thing, when somebody clicks on your site and comes back, that can be a really good way to kill your site as far as engagement, of having people go to your site, going back, and sort of downvoting your site through the algorithm. So you really want to be at about 2 seconds from the visual standpoint of your user, meaning that within 2 seconds they see your content. The rest of it, because sometimes we have analytical files and things like that, that can load after that point, that's no problem. So the entire site load time could be 4 or 5 seconds, as long as the visual part is what's showing up. And you can, there's free tools out there like GT Metrics, it's gtmetrix.com. That'll run a speed test of your site, and it'll show you on there. And the best thing I like to look at is there's a timings tab, and it'll show you the time to what they call paint. And that's when you start seeing all the visual stuff. and then they'll have what they call a DOM loaded, and that's when all the visual components have now been loaded. So that's a good way to take a look at your site and see how fast it's loading, and if it's even an issue. So thank you so much for coming today. My name is Tyler Goldberg. I'm a developer and strategist at CYBERsprout. I'd love to take any questions. Usually you get a ton of questions when it comes to search engine optimization. So if anybody wants to be the sacrificial lamb and come out first with a question. There we go. Robin, you're a great soul.
So some of the things you mentioned about that are the free tools to go look at, like when you send out this information, can you list some of those things?
Absolutely. That was an easy one. I like it. Set me up for success, right? James?
Yeah, curious if you had a couple examples of what like black hat and gray hat techniques would be, in case like sometimes you hear just an anecdote from someone saying, "Oh, this worked for us for the Google algorithm." If you just had a couple examples off the top of mind, just kind of curious.
Yeah, so one way would be paying for backlinks. Google has explicitly said you can't pay for backlinks, so you can't go to somebody else's site and say, I'm going to pay for this. And some of them have been advertising. There used to be entire sites set up that literally the whole business model was around people paying them for backlinks. So that would be a good example of something that they've said you can't do anymore. It's tough to go through. I mean, the best way, ironically, is to Google what that technique is, and usually those top results will show you, hey, this is what we think about it. So you'll usually see like a Moz or a search engine land right at the top, and they'll tell you, hey, don't do this instead. So that's usually what I would do if I hear about something. And you're always hearing about new stuff too, and I'm sure what we're going to be hearing in 2-3 years from now is going to be totally different. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing to focus on is to make it easy to read, a good user experience, and the best content out there. If you're focusing on those things, to me, you're going to be in great shape for the long run. Craig, did you have a question?
I had a situation on Sunday with Google that a local Google guide, if everyone heard of local guides by Google,
Yep.
must have pulled into Alexandria, sitting at Culver's, comes up on his phone, rate this establishment. Then Mills Fleet Farm came up, rate this establishment, gave him 5 stars, gave Culver's. I popped up, Spirit Cove Lodge. He wrote a 1-star review and said, I've never been there, don't know what it's like, and he'd enter.
You're not the only one that's had this problem. It's actually a known problem, even Google has admitted it, that their way of being able to manage those reviews is not the best right now, because I totally agree with you. We've had a number of clients where, like for example, we work with a Mercy restaurant in the cities. There's a Mercy restaurant in, I think it's like Phoenix, and people are leaving reviews from that restaurant on Mercy's in the cities, and that one that was down there must have gone through some tough times there for a little while because they got some bad reviews from them. Now you can flag those reviews and you can give Google feedback, and that's really up to that. You already flagged it, didn't you?
I actually got a person on the phone on Sunday. I got a person, and he told me, number one, you just need to go out and get more positive reviews to offset that. And because I'm signed up with Google My Business, he found it, he saw the review, he read it back to me, and I said, well, it doesn't violate our policy. And I said, an untruth?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy admits it right there. I mean, so then I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to make it a marketing advantage. My response, I'm going to reply to it. And I'm saying, sorry, Al, that you have not had a chance to visit Spirit Cove Lodge. But as you see, most of my reviews are 5 stars. Next time you're in Alexandria, please come in. I'm confident that people will go to my Google, they'll click and see, what's this 1-star review?
Yeah.
What's wrong with Spirit Cove Lodge? They'll read the whole thing, and I can debunk it.
Yep.
But the guy said, I mean, it was a Google person that said, you're screwed. I can't take it down because it doesn't violate the policy. Come on.
And actually Yelp is bad about that too. Like Yelp has actually pretty much admitted that they can manipulate your ranking as far as like how you show up and how many reviews, things like that you get if you don't play ball with them sometimes. Whereas if you're not paying for services and things like that. So there is a lot of frustration right now. You're not the only one. There's tons and tons of people that are experiencing the same thing as you, and it's unfortunate. I'm hoping they come up with a better long-term fix, but honestly, I think what you did there is spot on. I would have done.
And the guy said, oh, I like what you did, I liked your response. Again, thanks very much, but you're not solving my problem. What I've gotten from your presentation is about managing, I'm going to go find out, get that link. And my first thought was when I got off the phone, I'm gonna start an email campaign with every one of my guests. I got the email address. I'm gonna communicate to them, kind of saying, go to Google, now that I know that I can give them a link. I can go after this, but just be aware that these local guides.
So it's not so much the local guides, because I'm technically a local guide, but I've never done anything dishonest like that. And Google local guide, all it really means is you've done a lot of Google reviews.
Right.
There's nothing special about being a local guide. It just means you've left a lot of reviews. The one thing though that can be tricky is local guides are given a little more prominence as far as how their reviews show up. Their suggestions and things like that. If I see like information that's incorrect listed online for your business, it'll get fixed much faster because I've built up a reputation. But just reviewers in general, yeah, it is a problem, and I wish I had a better solution for you, but the honest truth is just that Google hasn't solved it, Yelp hasn't really truly solved it. I'm hoping that they're able to come up with some better, solutions going forward here. I feel your frustration. Yes?
So my website, it's an online business directory, and is it advantageous for me to have my own review system on my site versus using just Google reviews?
Yeah, having your own review system can be good. There's actually schema markup for reviews so that Google can tell that those are reviews, and then they can pull it from your site. And then, so for example, this is really, really popular with products because reviews can go right along with products, and it can help pull those. If you ever search for a product and see those reviews go right into the search results for a product, you'll see like little stars right below the result. That's part of that schema markup. So I think having your own online review system can be very effective. Google can understand it. Yes?
Work for a company, it's a lot of companies started out like with the coaching group for adopted foster parents. We've now added like a second part to it where it's helping teachers, so they're kind of connected, but not necessarily connected. If I keep it all on one page, like right now we have it on one page,
Yeah.
and it's there's a page, a section that's parents and a section that's teachers, different pages in that website. Does that mess my SEO up?
No, I think that's good. I think it's all related.
Okay.
And if you're going to be talking about that as a service you truly provide and all that, I think you're golden. There's nothing wrong with adding another topic to your site.
Okay.
It's just that it has to be something that is true to who your business is.
Yes.
I just don't want it to be something that you're like, I'm going to add it on there, but it's not really something we do. It's not really our expertise.
Okay, yeah.
So that's more so where it's a concern.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
Is there an ideal number for keywords? Meaning how many is too many?
There's no ideal, and actually, this is one thing I love about this, is the sky's kind of the limit if you're going to be somebody who's actively blogging. Like, we actually, on our own content calendar, we have blog posts scheduled out for, like, what, about 2 years? Yeah. So we've got blog posts scheduled out for years to come, because all it can do, like, the reason actually that HomeSpot HQ, I was able to grow it really high, is I got to a point where I published 500 blog posts, and when you look at it, if only every blog post is getting, say 100 hits a month on average, that can be massive traffic, and that's passive, because those searchers are going to keep on coming, from year to year, as long as I'm providing good content. And if I'm just adding more and more targets, I'm getting more and more searchers coming in. So you're kind of keeping on expanding this. Now, it's not to say you have to go with that approach. Sometimes, if you're, say, a local business and you don't really care if somebody from California finds your article because they're not going to be a client, then you may just need to have some landing pages for what people locally are searching. Does that answer your question?
Another question?
Shoot, Seth.
So if you are heavily blogging weekly, how does Google look at that if you use the same keyword? Or like, how can you come up with that many unique keyword phrases?
And that's when the brainstorming really comes in, and also the Google Search Console, because it may provide you with some stuff that you never thought of that your searchers made. You could also talk to your end user and ask them what they search for. If you talk to a dozen of them and say, hey, what would you search for to find this service, this one? Try and be as generic as possible so that they can give you more specific examples. That's a good way to do it. I wouldn't write 2 articles on the same topic, because that could create confusion. Because then Google's going to look at it and go, okay, this one's for website design, this one's for website design, but which one's really supposed to show up in the results, so I'm going to do neither. So sometimes that can happen if you're creating confusion like that. It's better instead, if you're like, okay, I want to add more content, there's nothing wrong with going back to an article, and actually I would encourage it, if there's updated information, going back to those articles and expanding on that information. That's a great thing to do, and that's a part of this annual audit, and that's a part of, those ones that are showing up on that second page. If you can add more useful content to that article, add updates, that can help a lot. Plus it shows to Google that they pay attention to that. They know their scrapers are hitting your website almost every single day. If you're an active blogger, they're going to know when you're making those changes, and that's going to show to them that you are actively maintaining your site and maintaining good information.
I have a question to follow up with that. What would be the better strategy to, so here's the, I'll just give you a real life example. Must do summer activities for Alexandria. Did it previous year. Need to do an update to it for this year. Basically what I did was just repurposed it, republished a new post. Is it better to go back to the old one and expand on it so that Google can see that it's been updated, knowing that it's had traffic before, or is it better to have a fresh new one? Basically the same topic, but different information slightly.
I would rather update it for a few reasons. For one, I think it's going to be a little bit easier than having to go through and like republish content. I've even seen it where some people will put on their site last updated and have a date on there, so they can clearly convey to Google like, hey, this is when I last updated it. They'll have a published date and the last updated date. But yeah, I would rather go back to an old article and update it. Because the other thing too is, if you're getting links from other sites to that one, so people really liked it, and if you change your link structure, those backlinks are all now broken. So I like just freshening content up. Anybody else? I'm going to stick around here for about 20-30 minutes after this, so if you have any questions, if you want to come up and ask me, I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for coming, everybody.